albums into more houses, more children heard it, more people heard the album because of Roundabout.
This week when we talked to Rick Wakeman of Yes, then the first part of a two-part backstage special. Backstage special. Howdy, I'm Jimmy Roche. Tonight we'll have the first part of a two-week backstage special with Yes. Yes was formed in 1968 by John Anderson and Chris Squire. After the third Yes album was released, Rick Wakeman, formerly with the Strawbs, joined the band. Rick brought with him an entire stable of keyboard instruments, and his presence was felt immediately on the next album, Fragile, released in 1971. Then, after 2 highly successful years, Rick quit Yes to record solo. Usually when someone leaves a band, there's bad blood between the parties involved. But in the case of Rick Wakeman and Yes, this wasn't the story. Because 3 years after he left the band, Rick Wakeman came back, then fit in like he'd never left. We asked him about the difference between performing as a solo artist and playing with Yes.
Whatever music you're doing, whether you're working on your own or whether you're working with the band, all you really think about is the end product, it's the music. So it doesn't really matter whether you've only got 3 notes to play all night, 3,000 to play. The end product is the piece of music, which is all you think about. The only thing which, in fact, wasn't difficult, which was more easy, moving from solo stuff back to Yes, was there's 5 people who share the burden, whereas before I used to have to sort of share the burden for everything. So it does, in fact, take a little bit off of your shoulders. If I get an idea, I don't think ideas, I like to do ideas. I'm not a thinker, I'm a doer. I mean, I know you have to think before you do something, but if I have a silly idea or even a good idea, I go and do it, and the silly ones have become very silly, and the good ones sometimes become good, and the bad ones become bad. But I think everybody in the world must get very frustrated when there's something they would really like to do, but they either haven't got the courage to do it, and I'm not talking about evil things, I'm talking about good things. If they haven't got the courage to do it, then they must think about the fact that they should have the courage to do it. I mean, everything I've wanted to do, I've done, basically. And a lot of it's been really dreadful mistakes. But out of the dreadful mistakes, there's been the things that have come good out of it. There must be so many frustrated people about who want to do everything, maybe from even, own a dog to, appear at Carnegie Hall. Well, the new setting is basically in the middle of the hall with a revolving stage. Let's put it simply, with the hung PA and a hung lighting system. The object being that we did so many concerts in America where we spoke to kids, after the show, and they said, did you enjoy it? And we used to get so many answers, yeah, we really enjoyed it, but we had such a rotten seat. Or not a good sound where our seat was, and this sort of thing. So we thought, well, there must be some way, because you can't change the shape of the halls you're playing in the auditoriums. So we could at least try something else. So we moved the stage into the middle and made it revolve so everybody gets to see everything. Stuck the lights and the PA up in the air, very basically. Put all the equipment, with the exception of the instruments, under the stage where all the road crew live. And it's really a very simple setup, but it seems to be effective because the kid who hasn't got that much bread, who can only afford, say, like a normal seat, ordinary price seat, gets a real good show, which is the whole object of the exercise.
The Yes performance had been interrupted by a young man who jumped up on stage and grabbed John Anderson. We asked Rick if the possibility of the crowd losing control had any effect on the band's performance.
No, it affects. It G's you up. It G's you up a lot. It must get worrying, I should think. It doesn't get worrying for us because our audiences, even though they get a bit crazy and they enjoy themselves, they're ordinary people like you or I that are wouldn't hurt, deliberately hurt anybody or do any damage or anything. But sometimes you get people who are in charge, which must be pretty frightening, I suppose, for the police or the security people, when there's only, say, about 30 of them or 40 of them, and there's suddenly like 18,000 kids suddenly go bananas. It must freak them out a little bit. I think they worry that if it did get out of control, what would they do? I think if they just left it alone a bit more, it always sorts itself out. I get a bit worried when free-for-all start, things like that. I don't like to see people get hurt.
Yes.
The special with Jimmy Roche will return shortly.
Caused by being on the road, it's tough on any family. If you're playing over here and your wife is in Europe, it's even tougher. Rick Wakeman.
Because I was on the road so much, my first marriage failed, which was my fault entirely. It does destroy home life. I've got a new home life now in Switzerland, which I nurture as carefully as possible. But it's not easy. You have to play it by ear. It's very difficult. There's no golden rule to being away. Excuse me, it's cold in here. There's no golden rule to being away. It's almost like if you have to go away travelling, anybody has to go away travelling. Pressures are on, pressures from home, problems, the wife or girlfriend or whatever, needs you around sometimes as much as you need her around. You need your family around you. If you start letting these things worry you, have to try and sort them out as best as you can. You can't get homesick. You daren't get homesick. Everybody is, but you mustn't think about it. The same way as we were talking earlier about, you mustn't think your gear's going to go wrong. You've got to think positive all the time. You've got to think, at the end of the tour, it'll be a good tour, I'll go back really revitalised, go back to the lady, or whatever, should we please, should be revitalised because you've been away or whatever. You've got to think like that, turn everything into a positive thought.
He's played solo, with orchestras, with the Straubs, with Yes, and he's guested on many other artists' records. We asked him what he hoped to do in the future.
I can't imagine, the only way I can say about the future, I can't imagine the future without my music. Or without playing music, without performing music, without writing. My life would be very empty without it. All I can do is hope, for whether I'm 8 or 80, that music is still a very big part of my life. I'm married to it. I'll always love my music, I think, more than all music. I love more than... It's an awful thing to say, but I think I love my music almost more than I could love a human. It's a weird love. If I had to be locked on a desert island, and before sort of rap or Welsh, I'd take my piano. And it doesn't mean to say that I'm asexual or anything like that, because I'm far from it. But you understand what I mean? I think that's important for everybody. Everybody must have something. Even if they're not a player, if they're a listener, there must be something that means such a lot to them.
Mr. Rick Wakeman on keyboards.
You are what you are. You're what God made you, and that's the be-all and end-all. All artists have to live a Jekyll and Hyde existence. It's a fact of life. People think what they want to think. Some people think that some people treat the band like gods. Other people treat them like humans. I don't care, as long as it's sort of, as long as we mean something to people. Then if we make some people happy, that's great. That's basically all I'm interested in.
Rick Wakeman is the keyboard player with Yes, and also one of the most entertaining performers to talk with. Rick has an opinion on most everything, but he's careful not to preach to his audience.
No, I have strong political views, I have strong ethical views, but I do not let them interfere in my music. I'm not, going back to what I was saying before, I'm not up there to preach. I'm up there to entertain. And for me to enjoy myself and for the people who come along to enjoy themselves, so we all become one. I'm not a preacher. I have strong views, and I'll sort of relate my views in where I think is the right place, which is in like the local bar or the local bowling alley or the local pool hall or whatever, where everybody gets around and talks. I'm not on stage where you've got a forced audience. A forced audience can get wrong ideas. So I'm not a preacher on those sort of grounds. See, a lot of the time, I hate to say this about musicians, but they suffer very dangerously from the little knowledge being a dangerous thing. And so they'll read a bit in the newspapers, the same as everybody else, about the nuclear plant or whatever, and then suddenly, overnight, there'll be an authority. that's dangerous. You know, you can't go out and preach about something you don't really know or understand about. If, for example, just going on the nuclear thing, if there was a musician who'd lived on 3 Mile Island all his life, who'd studied nuclear plants, nuclear energy, and the nuclear program that the United States had going, plus the world nuclear program, if he wanted to say something then yeah, I'd say fine. My parents helped me very much with my musical education, they sent me to college, and I finished at college, and I went to see my dad, and he said, "What are you going to do? You're going to be a teacher, music teacher, or or a concert pianist now? You've got your degree, I know what you're going to do." And I said, "I'm going to join a rock and roll band." He did freak a little, but they stuck by me. They're always watching carefully in the shadows, but they said, "You're on your own." You know, and if everything had gone drastically wrong for me, they would have helped out. In fact, in the early years, they did help me out a bit. They did it right, I think. At the time, I didn't think they did, but they did it right. They sort of said, "Well, that's not what we really think you should do, but we'll support you from the background, you know, and we're always there," sort of touch. I mean, now they're really pleased, you know, they're smashing people.
He's been involved in music since his classical piano training began as a child, and he's still amazed at the intense emotion that music can create.
Given the right moment, music must give you feelings, it must give you emotions. I mean, I don't, for example, I don't cry at films, but I can cry over music. I can also get very excited and happy about music. I think music is undoubtedly another language. Where it originates from, God only knows, but it's something that can be misused as much as any other thing can be misused. Like the spoken word, the human voice. Sometimes the things we say, you know, we misuse what we say. You can hurt people. I don't believe in hurting people. I never have done, either by word of mouth or by violence or whatever. I know sometimes it's necessary, you know, both extremes. But I'm to use the words of the good old English police force when I used to live in England. They used to say prevention is, you know, they're there for crime prevention, not for, you know, for catching people afterwards. I think everything can be prevented if only people think about it beforehand. And free form in art, in painting, free form in sculpture, and free form in music has not accomplished astonishing successes by any means. It's been a bit of a disaster. The free form that has sort of captured imagination is free form with a bit of discipline that has relationships with something. Otherwise, you can put a group of monkeys on a stage, you give a group of monkeys a paint pot. Sometimes I think in art people get conned. You could get a great painter who was you took Rembrandt even ages ago, and who was a classic painter. If he'd have got a piece of canvas and just dabbed a piece of red paint on it, that would sell now for thousands or millions or whatever because of his name. So you sometimes get into the dangerous zone of art sells because of the performer or the artist, and not for its musical content or its artistic content.
Be back in a moment with Jimmy Roche and the special.
Have the power to cause musicians a lot of irritation. As a result, many performers have come to avoid reading reviews entirely. Rick Wakeman.
Everybody says they don't care about critics, but everybody reads them, and they do hurt sometimes. They can make you feel very elated, they make you feel really good. Everybody likes to be told, as well as being told that you're rotten sometimes, everybody likes to be told, yeah, you did well. The best analogy I can make is if somebody writes a really good essay, which say 3,000 words, and the only comment you get from the teacher is, that word's wrong, and not the rest of it's very good or whatever, and then you're really down. But if the teacher says, yeah, it was really very good, hey, but that word's wrong there, try and put that right, the chances are the kid will put it right, rather than the next time around a lousy essay.
Chapman has always gone his own way. 2 years after leaving the Strawbs to join Yes, he felt it was time to go solo. So he did. The stage productions for his solo concerts have been some of the most extravagant in musical history. Then after a few years on his own, Rick decided it was time to come back to Yes. We asked him what he would change if he could start all over again.
Basically, I'd do exactly the same. Even all the wrong things that I did, I'd do again. I wouldn't change them. The only thing, if I could change, sometimes unwittingly or unknowingly, you hurt people. Either in the industry or family-wise. Parents, wives, children, or whatever. The only thing I'd like to change, I'd like to wipe out the hurt that I didn't do deliberately, but unwittingly, came from things that I did. Apart from that, I'd do everything else again.
Tonight's special was produced by Ted Rossetti and Dennis Benson. My thanks to them, to Rick Wakeman, and to you. I'm Jimmy Roche. Good night.